Hi guys, my name is Lawrence Baker. I'm Adobe certified expert in Photoshop CC and Photoshop Lightroom. This video is about the adjustment brush. I'm using Lightroom CC, but I think it will be relevant for people who use Lightroom 5, let's say. So let's get cracking. Now, I took this image a couple of years ago and the original looked like this. And I got it to this. And what I did was I heavily cropped it, did the changes in the basic panel, went into hue, saturation and luminance, part of the color panel, and I desaturated all the image, and then with an adjustment brush I painted back in the saturation to the wave and to the photographer here. So I need to get cracking, so let's get on. I'm going to go to a snapshot I got called No Brushes, because this is the photograph with the basic changes, the color sucked out of it, and basically I'm going to paint back in the colors to the wave and this gentleman here. So off we go. Okay, we'll get the brush up, pressing on the brush icon here, very straightforward, or going tools, adjustment brush. I'm trying to call it an adjustment brush because that's what it is, but you can't help but call it a brush. So I will stick with brush or adjustment brush, whatever I can remember. Let's quickly run through all the sliders. Now the sliders almost replicate what's in the basic panel, so I don't want to replicate things for people to know what these sliders do, but especially when I come down to flow and density, I think you do need to understand it. The bottom four are not so important, so I will go through them, but quite quickly. So it's very straightforward. Temperature will control how warm or cold it is. Blue, yellow. Tint is there to get rid of colour cast, but you can obviously add a tint in to get rid of colour cast in a certain area, or just tint a certain area. Exposure, that works on that part of the histogram, and that's the tone of the image, so we've got no highlights. Contrast, darken this area and lighten this area. That's what it does. Bit of a crude tool, but basically it will make the mid-tone greys darker and the mid-tone whites lighter. I don't particularly like it, but in a brush it might be quite useful. Highlights operates on this part of the image. Shadows operates on this part of the image. Clarity is about mid-tone contrast. It's a kind of a sharpening tool for the mid-tones, this area in the image, and it does a really nice job. Saturation, about how much you want to saturate the colours. Sharpness is about sharpness. Noise is about luminance noise, and you're not adding in noise, you're taking away. So when you put that brush up high, it will remove more noise. Moi or moire is a colour noise, really. Best explained if a television presenter's wearing an awful pattern jacket, the sensor and the camera in the studio can't cope with it, and it shows this horrible sort of patterning effect. I think you know what I'm talking about. That's what moi or moire is. Defringe is about chromatic aberration caused by lenses putting usually a purple fringing around the hard dead objects which are backlit. So you can use this tool to get rid of that. I would prefer to use lens corrections, but if you need to do it locally, this tool is quite good. Colour is to add a colour overlay to your brush. It can prove quite useful. At the moment with the X in it, it means no colour effect. If I click on it, I can add a colour in. It's based on the hue, saturation and luminance colour space, and hue is expressed, and hue means colour, expressed in 0 to 360 degrees, so that's somewhere near 0 up there, I should imagine. Yeah, 6. It sort of goes around to red, up to nearly 360 there, almost back to where it started from. It's worth reading up upon, because when you use Photoshop, I prefer to use the HSL sliders rather than the red, green and blue sliders. This one here will desaturate or saturate, so you can see it's pulling the little square up and down. So wherever you place it, you can place it up and down in a vertical line from that point, and that's why they use HSL, because it lends itself to this kind of control. Anyway, that remembers the last few colours you might have had, or I think it might be preset colours. Can't remember now, guys. Off it goes, because we're not going to deal with it at the moment. Brush A and B, you can pick your own presets. You set A up to one size, feather and flow, and B to another size, feather and flow, and density as well, and you can flip between the two. Erase is to take away from what you've already done. It can't take away from, if you've not done any changes, erase can't erase anything. When you've done something and you want to erase it, you use the erase brush here. Size, pretty obvious, but try and remember one important thing. The quickest way to work with any tool is, especially brushes, is to use keyboard shortcuts. The square bracket keys are so important when you're editing with a brush. Left square bracket key will make the brush smaller, right square bracket key will make the brush larger. Feather means softening at the edge of the brush, and it's represented by the outer ring. So it's the outer ring there, it's the feathering. Feathering means softening at the edges. You can't control the amount of the softening, but you can control the size of the softening. So it's at 100% now. If you bring it down there, you'll see I've decreased it. I would never work with a brush without some feather on it. End of. Flow, assume there's ink coming out of this, or paint, let's say, and how much you will lay down each stroke. So if you're laying down, I've got the mask overlay on here, guys, I'll cover that quickly in a minute. So if that was set to around 50, which it is at the moment, I would need 2 strokes to equal 100% of the density. So the relationship between density and flow is, if my density was set to 50, around that mark, if I painted once and then painted twice, I would put down the maximum amount of density. So it would never go above 54 or whatever it's set as. So flow can never exceed what's set in density. I very rarely work with 100% density or 100% flow, unless I'm deleting things or covering large block areas, because you can't go back and change this retrospectively. Try and remember that you cannot exceed what's set in density with flow. Density is set to 50. I need 1, 2 strokes to equal what's set in density. So if it's set to 100%, I can go 1, 2, and I'm getting 100% of the effect of the brush. And the adjustment mask overlay can be seen here. You can change the colour of it from red, green, white or black. You can hide it or cycle through the colours. The tool overlay is the actual pin. It shows you tool overlay for the adjustment brush. For a graduated filter, it's the pin and the 3 lines. This time, for a brush, it's just the pin. So I would always have it on always show, because it's too easy to make mistakes and lose what other brushes you've got on the image. So I want all my pins to show up. The active pin will always be the one with the darkest colour in the middle and the brightest white around the outside. So if I went to do a new one now and started painting, that's become the active pin. You can see it's not greyed out, that one's greyed out. That means that's the active pin. That's why I have always show on. And you can control it for here, get rid of the mask overlay, which is the colours showing you what you're doing. It's not the colours you're painting, it's just showing you what areas you're working on. If I didn't want to see it, I would just go oh, and I don't see it anymore. I would say, if you're new to Lightroom, have all the pins showing. But if I have it just on selected, if I get rid of this here, excuse me, selected, it will just be the brush I'm working on and lose the other ones. I think I'm seeing that colour there, which really threw me. It's because I painted down with the colour on the brush. I'm really sorry. It did confuse me for a second. I realised it's a turquoise colour. So I've reset all the brushes now. So yeah, I would have it on always. I just tend to remember the keyboard shortcuts, which is O to get the overlay on, Shift O to cycle through the colours. You wouldn't need to know any more. So I'm going to paint now, but I've got that damn colour on. So I'm going to double click. Double clicking on any of these sliders will zero them out. Double clicking on effect will zero the whole lot out. And as I say, if you like a brush, you can save it by going save current settings as new preset. Dialog box come up, you can save it. I don't save brushes. I find it a waste of time because every image is different and you need to play around with the sliders no matter what presets you've got. So it's kind of a bit pointless. But for some people, it gives them confidence. For me, it just slows me down. That covered a hell of a lot there. But it's important to understand that bottom half there, because flow and density are very important. I would very rarely work with my density set up to 100% or my flow set to 100%. Let's get cracking. I've saved a couple of brushes, and one was called Photographer. I could just go and create a new brush now and put the colour back in, but I saved it to save a bit of time. I'm now going to go Shift to increase the feather. Shift and right hand square bracket key to increase the feather. I don't like the size, it's too big, and now I'm going to start painting. I've got auto mask on and it will do its best to stay within the bounds of the object I'm painting. If I have it half in, half out, that's the best way to start. So the center of the brush is there and it knows where the edges are. Now I should be really zoomed in here, but I'm not, because I want to work quickly. I've got the mask overlay on And if I now press O to get rid of the mask overlay, you'll see I've brought back the colour of the jacket. Not brilliantly, but I've brought it back. So that's a good way of hand colouring a black and white photograph, by just zeroing out the sliders in the colour panel in HSL and then painting the colour back in. And while I'm at it, I might do that to make that a little bit better. I'm just going around this in a moment, a little bit better, and I'm probably going to put the exposure up a little bit more so he shines up a little bit. There you go. Not the best edit, but I would have zoomed in normally and painted it a little bit more. But I'm not just unhappy with that. If I was doing it for going to print, I'd definitely be a little bit more fussy, but I'm just trying to muck around there. So I've brought the exposure up, so he's shot, brightened up, saturation 100%, might bring the clarity up, not too much, don't want sharp edges, bring the highlights up. So I could even go like this and add a colour into his jacket, but I don't want to, because you can see it's causing problems. But if I really wanted to bump up the blue a little bit, I could do that. Oh, I'm being a bit cheeky. So that's what the colour overlay does. I should have pressed new, and I'm going to press new now. And then I'm going to pick wave, and wave is there. What I'm saying is, if you have too many presets, you'll end up getting confused. I like to work like this, really, by double clicking here. I've got the wave edited. I would go new now. I'm going to leave that photographer alone. And you see it's greyed out. Now, I've got wave edited, and it's basically I've reset it. So what I want to do is bring back some colour into it. And I might put a little bit of colour overlay in a minute. So I don't want the saturation up too high. And definitely don't want the density too high here, because there's no hard edges in that wave. And flow is, ooh, might have it a little bit lower. Feather up to 100, yeah, absolutely. Right hand square bracket key, and off I go. The auto mask is not doing me a great deal of favours here. So, as you see, the other brush is there showing up when I go near it. But I like to have all my pins showing. This is the trouble you have. You've got to be very careful when working these brushes. If you want to start doing something different in a different area, click new. And you won't lose your original edit on that brush. So there you go. I've put some colour back into that wave. Now if I press O, I can see the overlay on it. And I've not done a bad job. I could go and press the Alt key to, pressing the Alt key put me straight to erase. It's one of the best settings there is. So you don't have to keep going to this panel. Just remember, whatever brush you're in, A or B, or erase, it'll swap between erase and A and B by hitting the Alt key. So I'm taking a little bit away from there. And I might even add a bit down here. I don't want to add a bit on that. It's pointless, but just add a tiny bit around there, because that was a spray of the wave and a tiny bit there. So, get the overlay off. And now I can play around with the sliders. I can make it really saturated. And that's what the wave looked like, actually. So obviously I'm only bringing it back to the colour it was out of the camera. So that's not that bad. But actually I don't really like it too saturated. But what I do is make it more water-like by adding some blue in. Or I can go to this overlay here and add a bit of blue in. That would be too much, I can guarantee you. That would be too much. But I want it a dirty colour. I know I can't explain that, but I want it sort of dirty, browny, pink colour. Yeah, I might stick with that. Oh, I might go around there. So, oh no, that's definitely no. It looks more in tune with what the colour was already there, and it was kind of dirty and yeah. So I could even drag that slider down there, or you can play with the tint and put a bit of green in. I'm starting to play now artistically rather than realistically. Yeah, and that's the adjustment brush, guys. The important thing to remember is that icon's very obvious. Keyboard shortcut K. O for overlay. And that puts the adjustment mask overlay on. And what it basically means is you can see with a colour overlay the areas you're affecting. So pressing O now will put the colour red on. I work with it on often because it shows me where I'm going, especially in certain images. And I might, as I say, even add a bit in there. And Shift O will change the colours. But once you've got a colour you like, and I usually work in green, but if I went Shift O, I can work in green. So O is a really important key to remember. Remember this colour thing here, because it can help you along. And remember, whatever you set in flow cannot go past what's set in density. Never work with 100% flow and 100% density unless you're doing large block areas that you want to block out quickly. If you're working in areas like this, you definitely don't want to be at 100% of anything. Feather I always have on because I don't want hard edges. And if I probably zoomed in on that jacket there now, I would have a few hard edges. But if you had it onto a really hard edge with flow at 100% and density set to 100%, you would see artifacting. So you've got to be careful. Now, if I want to go to that brush, I click on its pin. As you can see, because I've got always show on, the other one's there in grey. So this has been a long video, guys, and some people don't do long videos, but I wanted to take you through a technique for hand colouring a black and white image, and I wanted to show you what the adjustment brush can do, because a lot of people don't use this colour thing here. They don't. Remember, if you want to work on a different area with a different type of brush, press new and it will save your old brush, or close your old brush, open the tool panel up again. So new is quite important. Thanks, guys.